Moonlit curse. Deep within the heart of a dark and foreboding forest, far from the bustling world, there lay a secluded village. It was a place untouched by the hands of time, and secrets as ancient as the trees whispered through its narrow, winding streets. The village was encircled by dense woods, and the people who lived there spoke of a cursed forest that stretched its gnarled limbs around their homes. It was a place where the boundary between the living and the otherworldly blurred, and the locals lived in a constant state of dread. Sarah, a local historian with a thirst for uncovering hidden truths, had long been intrigued by the mysterious tales of this village. The forbidden forest that skirted the community was said to be cursed, plagued by a malevolent presence that had haunted the land for generations. The villagers shrouded the forest in a veil of superstition, and they warned against venturing too close to its shadowy border. Yet, Sarah was undeterred. She was determined to unveil the secrets that shrouded the village and its eerie surroundings. One fateful day, as she delved deeper into the village's history, Sarah stumbled upon a tantalizing lead, a cryptic journal entry hinting at the curse that held the forest in its icy grip. The entry spoke of a full moon, of ghastly howls in the night, and of a monstrous figure that stalked the trees. This was the story that had been passed down through generations, told in hushed tones around hearth fires. Her curiosity piqued. Sarah couldn't resist the pull of the village any longer. She knew that she had to experience it firsthand. Sarah's plan was to visit the village and document the history, to sift through the thick layer of myth and superstition to find the truth. But she couldn't do it alone. She needed a partner who could help her bring her findings to the world, someone who could lend credibility to her quest. That's where Thomas, a skeptical journalist, entered the picture. Thomas was a man of reason, a seeker of facts and a doubter of the supernatural. He had heard the village stories before, but he dismissed them as folklore. Sarah's pitch was met with raised eyebrows, but her enthusiasm was infectious. She convinced Thomas that there might be a real story to uncover, and he couldn't resist the allure of a good investigative piece. They arrived in the village on a chilly evening, greeted by suspicious and wary villagers who watched their every move. The locals spoke of the curse in hushed tones, as if the very mention of it could awaken the ancient evil that lay dormant in the forest. Sarah and Thomas settled into a rustic inn, where they would be based during their investigation. As the days passed and their research intensified, they found themselves absorbed in the village's history. It was a place where fear reigned, and the curse was all too real for those who lived there. They met with elders who recounted the terrifying nights of the full moon, when the forest came alive with nightmarish howls and blood-curdling screams. Soon, the day of the full moon approached. It was a night Sarah and Thomas had been both dreading and anticipating. They prepared for their excursion into the forest, armed with cameras and recorders, ready to document any evidence of the supernatural. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the village was cloaked in an eerie silence. The moon rose, casting an eerie glow over the trees. The cursed forest beckoned to them, and despite their mounting anxiety, they ventured in. The forest was alive with the whispers of the wind and the rustling of leaves. But there was something more, something lurking in the shadows. The air grew colder, and their breaths became visible in the moonlight. Every step was fraught with tension as they followed the faint traces of the ominous journal entry. And then they heard it, an otherworldly, guttural howl that seemed to come from all directions. It sent shivers down their spines. Panic set in as they realized they were not alone. A pair of eyes, reflecting the moonlight, appeared in the underbrush, fixed on them with a predatory intensity. There, in the cold, dark heart of the cursed forest, they encountered the source of their fear. It was a creature of nightmares, a grotesque fusion of man and wolf, a werewolf. Towering on two legs, covered in matted fur, and with teeth as sharp as daggers, it snarled with an unholy hunger. Sarah and Thomas froze in terror, their rational minds unable to comprehend the supernatural horror before them. They had sought the truth, but now they were faced with a creature that should only exist in the realm of legends and nightmares. The werewolf lunged, and they barely had time to react. Sarah's heart pounded as they fled, running through the twisted, moonlit forest, chased by the relentless beast. The curse had come to life, and there was no escaping its malevolent grasp. Their breaths came in ragged gasps, their footsteps echoing in the darkness. They stumbled over roots and fallen branches, the relentless pursuit of the werewolf serving as a haunting reminder of the ancient evil that gripped the forest. Just when it seemed like there was no hope, they stumbled upon a hidden path that led them out of the forest and back to the village. The beast, bound by the curse, could not cross the village threshold. They collapsed in the safety of the village square, their bodies trembling from the adrenaline and fear that still coursed through their veins. They had sought the truth, and they had found it in the most terrifying way possible. As the sun began to rise, the cursed forest slowly receded into the shadows, and the werewolf retreated to its hidden lair. The villagers, waking to find Sarah and Thomas safe, seemed to exhale a collective sigh of relief. The curse had been temporarily quelled, but it would always linger, waiting for the next full moon to unleash its horrors once more. For Sarah and Thomas, their encounter with the supernatural had left an indelible mark on their lives. They had ventured into the unknown and emerged with a story that defied logic and reason. It was a tale of a cursed village, a moonlit forest, and a terrifying werewolf, and it was a story they would carry with them for the rest of their days. The moonlit curse had revealed itself in all its horrifying glory, leaving them with a chilling truth: some secrets are best left buried in the shadows. For there are things in this world that defy explanation and logic, and the cursed forest would always be one of them. The pack's vengeance. The remote cabin was a speck of warmth in the vast wilderness, nestled deep within the heart of the unforgiving forest. It was a sanctuary of flickering firelight and a cozy refuge from the biting cold outside. Mike, a seasoned hunter, had brought his group of friends here for a weekend retreat. Little did they know, this cabin would soon become a battleground for their very lives. The snowstorm had been merciless, burying the cabin in a thick shroud of snow. It was a night where the wind howled like a vengeful spirit and the world outside seemed to have been erased from existence. Inside the cabin, the fire crackled, casting dancing shadows on the walls, and the group huddled close for warmth. Laughter and stories filled the room, and the flicker of candles added a warm, welcoming glow. But beyond the windows, in the icy blackness of the forest, a different kind of warmth was stirring, an insatiable hunger that burned deep within the hearts of the vengeful pack. They had waited in the shadows, patient and relentless, for the perfect moment to strike. As the hours passed, the storm showed no sign of relenting. The friends had no choice but to stay put, trapped in their cozy cabin by the fury of nature outside. It was a night that would forever change their lives. Mike had been the one who had ventured into the wilderness many times before, the one who knew these woods like the back of his hand. He had assured his friends that this trip would be an adventure they'd never forget. What he didn't mention was the legend of the vengeful werewolf pack that was said to haunt the very woods they were in. The locals spoke of a curse that had been placed on the pack long ago, a curse that bound them to the forest and turned them into bloodthirsty monsters whenever the moon was full and the snowstorm fierce. Mike dismissed these tales as mere folklore, but the stories weighed heavily on the minds of his friends as they sat huddled together. As the night wore on, they heard it, the ominous howling of the pack. The chilling sound seeped through the cabin walls, filling the room with an eerie, bone-chilling atmosphere. Fear twisted the faces of Mike's friends, their eyes wide with terror. The howling grew closer, and suddenly, the front door burst open, sending a frigid blast of snow and wind into the cabin. Standing in the doorway was the leader of the vengeful pack, a hulking creature with fur as black as the night and eyes that burned with an unnatural hunger. Its fangs glistened in the firelight, and its growl was a guttural warning. Mike's heart raced as he realized that the legends were true. The cabin had become their prison, and the pack was the jailer. A desperate battle for survival began as the pack descended upon the cabin, their claws and teeth tearing through walls and flesh alike. Mike and his friends fought valiantly, using whatever makeshift weapons they could find, but the pack's vengeance was relentless. The cabin became a gruesome battleground, a scene of unrelenting terror as the friends struggled to fend off their attackers. Blood stained the snow outside as the storm raged on, the cabin's flickering fire a stark contrast to the merciless violence within. The friends had become prey in the pack's relentless hunt, their screams echoing through the forest, drowned out by the howling wind. But Mike, the hunter, refused to surrender to the pack. With a final, desperate lunge, he managed to subdue the leader, driving a makeshift stake through its heart. The pack's vengeance had been quelled, at least for the moment. The storm outside continued its onslaught, the world blanketed in white, hiding the horror that had transpired within the cabin. Mike's friends, battered and traumatized, looked to him for answers, for a way to escape the relentless snowstorm and the curse that still lingered in the forest. It was a night they would never forget, a night of survival and terror in the unforgiving wilderness. They had underestimated the legends, and they had paid a steep price for their ignorance. As dawn finally broke, the storm began to relent, and the forest, now eerily quiet, revealed no trace of the vengeful pack. The cabin stood as a grim testament to the night's horrors, a place forever scarred by the relentless hunger of the cursed creatures. Mike and his friends were left with a chilling truth. The forest held secrets that defied explanation and logic, and the pack's vengeance would forever be a haunting reminder of the terrors that could lurk in the most remote corners of the world. They had survived, but they would carry the scars of that night with them, a reminder of the relentless and unending hunger of the supernatural. The Torn Diary. The old mansion had long stood as a melancholic sentinel near the edge of the dark and tangled forest. Its once grand walls, now worn and weary, whispered the secrets of a tragic history that the world had forgotten. The locals spoke of the mansion in hushed tones, convinced that it was haunted, cursed by a forbidden love story that had unfolded within its decaying walls. Amelia, a determined historian with a penchant for uncovering forgotten tales, had become obsessed with the rumors surrounding the mansion. The whispers of ghostly apparitions and the legends of a forbidden love had ignited a curiosity in her that she couldn't ignore. She was determined to explore the decrepit mansion, to sift through the layers of mystery and discover the truth hidden within its walls. To assist her in this quest, Amelia enlisted the help of Daniel, an enigmatic guide with a reputation for exploring the darkest and most obscure corners of the world. His presence added an air of mystique to their journey, and it was said that he had a knack for uncovering the supernatural. The day of their exploration had come, and they stood at the threshold of the mansion, staring at its faded grandeur. The building's shadow seemed to reach out and draw them in, inviting them to uncover the secrets that lay hidden within its time-worn chambers. As they entered the mansion, they were met with a heavy, stifling atmosphere. Dust danced in the air, caught in the feeble rays of light that filtered through the cracked windows. The creaking of the wooden floors beneath their feet seemed to echo with the mansion's desolate history. Amelia and Daniel ventured deeper into the mansion, guided by the unshakable feeling that they were not alone. Their steps echoed through the narrow corridors, and the walls seemed to sigh with the weight of the stories they held. It was in a forgotten corner of the mansion, hidden behind a dusty bookshelf, that they stumbled upon the key to the mansion's enigma, a diary. The diary was weathered and torn, its pages yellowed with age, and its cover embossed with intricate designs. It was a relic from the past, a testament to a love that had defied time. The woman, Eleanor, had been a young and beautiful soul, and the werewolf, Gabriel, was a creature of the night, bound by the curse that transformed him under the full moon. Their love was forbidden, a secret they had hidden from the world. The diary spoke of their stolen moments, their stolen glances, and the burning passion that had consumed them. It told of moonlit rendezvous in the forest, where they had pledged their love to each other. But as the pages turned, the tone of the diary grew darker. The curse that had bound Gabriel began to take its toll on their love. Alina wrote of Gabriel's increasing struggles to control the beast within him, of his terrifying transformations under the full moon, and the desperate attempts to protect the village from his wrath. The tragic climax of the diary's tale revealed Gabriel's heart-wrenching decision. To protect Alina and the village he loved, he chose to leave her forever. It was a farewell filled with sorrow, written in a trembling hand, and the final page was stained with teardrops. Amelia and Daniel were deeply moved by the diary's story, and they couldn't shake the feeling that the mansion itself was haunted by the spirits of Alina and Gabriel. The air grew colder, and the scent of roses, mentioned in the diary as Alina's favorite, lingered around them. As they delved deeper into the diary, they began to hear whispers in the shadows and felt the ghostly caress of unseen hands. The apparitions of Alina and Gabriel, bound by the tragedy of their love, seemed to materialize before them. The lovers, separated by death, were now reunited in their torment, forever haunting the mansion. Amelia and Daniel had unknowingly released the spirits of the lovers by reading the diary. The ghostly figures of Alina and Gabriel, caught in an eternal embrace, appeared before them. Their faces were etched with longing and sorrow, their eyes haunted by the love they had lost. The lovers seemed to be trapped in an endless cycle of reliving their tragic story. The mansion, once a silent witness to their love, was now a prison that bound them in torment. Amelia and Daniel could feel the anguish of the lovers as if it were their own. The presence of the supernatural was overwhelming, and the mansion seemed to close in around them. The air grew heavy with sorrow, and the once forgotten love story had come to life in the most haunting way. In a final, desperate attempt to find a resolution for the tormented lovers, Amelia and Daniel returned the diary to its rightful place in the mansion, as if offering it as a token of respect for the tragic love that had unfolded within its pages. As the diary settled back into its original spot, the apparitions of Alina and Gabriel began to fade, their expressions transforming from despair to gratitude. It was as if the lovers had found closure, their love story no longer bound by the curse of the mansion. Amelia and Daniel left the mansion, forever haunted by the tale of forbidden love they had uncovered. The curse that had tormented Alina and Gabriel had now been shared with them, and they carried the weight of the lovers' tragedy with them. The mansion, once a place of secrets and suffering, stood as a testament to the power of love and the enduring connection between souls, even in the afterlife. The ghostly spirits of Alina and Gabriel had found peace, but the memory of their love would linger in the decrepit mansion for all eternity, a reminder that some stories are too powerful to be forgotten. Blood Moon Festival. The village had always seemed like a picture-perfect postcard, a tranquil haven nestled between rolling hills and dappled forests. The cobblestone streets, quaint cottages, and blooming gardens gave it an aura of idyllic charm, and it was the kind of place where nothing ever seemed amiss. But once a year, during the ominous Blood Moon Festival, the village's serene facade would unravel, revealing a dark secret that sent shivers down the spines of those who dared to visit. Lily, an outsider with an insatiable curiosity, had heard whispers about the festival and decided to explore its mysteries. The villagers had always been a secretive bunch, and their customs and traditions were veiled in an aura of mystique. Their eyes held secrets, and their voices carried stories they would never reveal. Lily was determined to uncover the truth hidden behind the festival, to shed light on the eerie rituals that took place during the blood moon. As she arrived in the village, the atmosphere was filled with anticipation. Banners of crimson and ebony hung from lampposts, and the sweet scent of rosemary and sage wafted through the air. Lily had rented a cottage on the outskirts of the village, choosing to observe the festival from a distance. The night of the blood moon had arrived, and the villagers gathered in the town square, their faces painted with mysterious symbols and their eyes gleaming with an unsettling fervor. They wore robes of deep scarlet and black, and they moved in graceful, synchronized dances that seemed almost ritualistic. Lily watched in fascination as the villagers lit a massive bonfire in the center of the square, its flames leaping towards the darkening sky. The drums and pipes played a haunting melody, and the villagers moved in a circular procession around the fire, their voices raised in eerie chants that echoed through the night. As the blood moon rose in the Inkai sky, its crimson hue casting an otherworldly glow over the village, Lily couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. It was as if the very air around her had thickened, as if an invisible tension gripped the village. She continued to observe the festival, her senses on high alert. She had noticed something odd about the villagers' behavior. Their movements had become more fluid and animalistic, their eyes gleaming with an unnatural intensity. It was as if an invisible switch had been flipped, transforming them into something different, something feral. Lily's curiosity had turned into apprehension. She needed to find answers, to uncover the truth behind the festival's eerie rituals. She couldn't ignore the growing sense of dread that had settled in her chest. As the night progressed, the villagers gathered around the bonfire, their movements growing increasingly frenzied. They raised their hands to the sky, their voices rising in a cacophonous chorus of howls and cries that sent chills down Lily's spine. Then it happened. The transformation that had eluded her understanding was now revealed in its horrifying reality. The villagers' bodies contorted and shifted, their bones cracking and flesh stretching as they morphed into monstrous, half-human, half-wolf creatures. The air was thick with the stench of fur and blood, and Lily could barely believe her eyes. As the villagers became fully transformed into werewolves, their eyes fixed on her with predatory intent. She was an outsider, an intruder in their sacred festival, and they saw her as a threat. Panic surged through her, and her heart raced as she realized the dire situation she was in. In a frantic, desperate attempt to escape, Lily dashed into the maze of cobblestone streets, the eerie cries of the villagers turned werewolves echoing behind her. The quaint cottages that had once seemed so charming now felt like a nightmarish labyrinth, the shadows concealing monstrous forms. Lily's breaths came in ragged gasps, and her footsteps resounded in the otherwise silent village. She knew she had to find a way out, to escape the clutches of the werewolves. But the village seemed to have transformed into a trap, its narrow streets leading her in endless circles. Just as she felt the hot breath of a werewolf on her neck, a hidden alleyway emerged before her, like a lifeline in the darkness. She raced down the alley, her pulse pounding in her ears, her every step a desperate plea for survival. The village had become a place of nightmares, where the quaint beauty had given way to a savage and relentless terror. The blood moon had unleashed the villagers' primal instincts, and Lily was caught in their deadly game. With every corner she turned and every dead end she encountered, Lily could feel the werewolves closing in, their predatory instincts honed by the crimson moon above. It was a harrowing pursuit, a relentless chase through the village's maze-like streets. Just when it seemed that there was no escape, Lily stumbled upon a crumbling, vine-covered wall. With all the strength she could muster, she scaled the wall, her fingers clawing at the ivy that clung to its surface. She reached the top just as the werewolves closed in below. Breathing heavily, Lily found herself in a dark forest, her heart still pounding with fear. The village, with its eerie blood moon festival, lay behind her. She had escaped the clutches of the werewolves, but the haunting memory of that night would stay with her forever. As the crimson moon slowly sank below the horizon, the villagers returned to their human forms, their memories of the night's events shrouded in a fog of uncertainty. The festival continued as if nothing had happened, as if the horrors of the blood moon were nothing more than a dream. But for Lily, the village's secrets were now exposed, and she could never forget the terror she had witnessed. The quaint, picturesque village had turned into a place of primal horror, and the Blood Moon Festival would forever be etched in her memory as a nightmarish experience she had barely survived. The Werewolf's Lament. The desolate graveyard lay on the outskirts of the town, a place of sorrow and memories. It was here that Nathan found himself, his heart heavy with grief. He had lost his beloved wife, Emily, to a tragic and mysterious death, and he had come to the graveyard to find solace in the quiet solitude. Nathan's footsteps echoed through the abandoned paths, and the wind whispered among the tombstones. The gray sky hung heavy with clouds, mirroring the heavy weight on his heart. The graveyard was a place where sorrow lingered, and it was here that the supernatural tale of love and revenge would unfold. As Nathan knelt by Emily's grave, his tears mingled with the rain that had begun to fall. He whispered words of love and longing, wishing for one more moment with his wife. But as he spoke, he felt a presence beside him, a cold and gentle touch that sent shivers down his spine. It was Emily, her ghostly form standing before him. Her eyes were filled with a sorrow deeper than the grave, and her voice carried a haunting beauty. She had returned from the afterlife, and she had a story to tell, a story that would send Nathan on a journey of vengeance. Emily revealed the truth about her death, a truth that sent a chill down Nathan's spine. She had been murdered by a werewolf, a creature of the night that had torn her from him. The memory of her screams haunted him, and the knowledge that the beast still roamed the night filled him with a burning desire for revenge. Together, Nathan and Emily embarked on a quest to seek out the werewolf and bring it to justice. They followed the ghostly trail of Emily's memory, the echoes of her final moments, to a desolate forest on the outskirts of town. It was there that the werewolf was said to dwell, hidden from the world. The forest was dark and ominous, its trees looming like silent sentinels. The night was filled with a haunting silence, broken only by the rustling of leaves and the distant cry of a night bird. Nathan and Emily ventured deeper into the woods, their hearts filled with determination. As they approached the heart of the forest, they felt an oppressive weight in the air. The moon, hidden behind a shroud of clouds, cast an eerie glow over the trees. It was a place where the boundary between the living and the supernatural blurred, and the presence of the werewolf was palpable. The ghostly presence of Emily guided Nathan through the forest, leading him to a clearing bathed in moonlight. There, they saw the werewolf, its monstrous form silhouetted against the glowing sky. Its eyes gleamed with a sinister hunger, and its fangs glistened in the moon's eerie light. With a fierce determination, Nathan confronted the werewolf, his heart filled with the desire for vengeance. The beast lunged, and the two engaged in a harrowing battle, a showdown between the living and the supernatural. As they fought, the forest seemed to come alive with a cacophony of eerie sounds. The wind whispered secrets of the night, and the trees swayed in response to the supernatural battle that raged before them. Emily's ghostly form stood by Nathan's side, her love and determination giving him strength. The battle was fierce and unrelenting, with each blow and each strike a testament to the power of love and revenge. Nathan, fueled by the memory of Emily's death, fought with a determination that could not be extinguished. With a final, desperate lunge, Nathan managed to drive a stake through the heart of the werewolf, ending its reign of terror. The creature let out a bone-chilling howl before crumbling to the ground, its monstrous form disintegrating into nothingness. As the dawn broke, the forest was bathed in the soft light of a new day. The battle had ended, and the werewolf's curse had been lifted. Emily's ghost, with a look of gratitude and peace, turned to Nathan, her mission now complete. With a whispered farewell, Emily's ghost began to fade, her form disappearing into the morning light. She was at peace, her spirit free from the haunting memories of her death. Nathan watched as she disappeared, his heart heavy with sorrow and gratitude. The desolate graveyard, once a place of grief and longing, had now become a place of closure and justice. Nathan had avenged his wife's death, and her spirit could finally find peace in the afterlife. The tale of love and revenge had come to an end, a supernatural story of loss and justice that had unfolded in the quiet solitude of the graveyard and the eerie depths of the forest. Nathan would forever carry the memory of that night with him, a reminder of the power of love and the strength of the human spirit in the face of the supernatural. Under a blood-red moon, the forest lay shrouded in an eerie mist, a place of ancient secrets and hidden mysteries. Emily, an archaeologist with an insatiable curiosity for the past, had always been drawn to places like this. Her colleague, Mark, was a man of skepticism, a rational thinker who questioned the existence of the supernatural. Little did they know that their journey into the fog-shrouded forest would unravel a terrifying tale of revenge and the supernatural. The ancient ruins had always been whispered about in local legends, their location lost to time. Emily and Mark, with a passion for uncovering the past, had been drawn to the forest by the promise of hidden history. Armed with their research equipment and determination, they ventured deep into the woods, guided by an unshakable curiosity. As they reached the heart of the forest, they stumbled upon the ruins, their stone structures cloaked in the shadows of the trees. The air was thick with an otherworldly aura, and the ruins seemed to pulse with an ancient energy. It was a place where the boundary between the living and the supernatural blurred. Emily and Mark began their research, deciphering the enigmatic inscriptions that covered the stones. Their curiosity led them to a series of incantations, words that held the power to bind and release supernatural forces. With an air of skepticism, Mark dismissed the incantations as mere superstitions, while Emily was drawn to the idea that they might unlock ancient secrets. As the night deepened, a blood-red moon began to rise in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the ruins. The lunar eclipse, a rare and mystical event, was unfolding before them. Unbeknownst to them, this celestial alignment held the power to awaken a vengeful spirit, a spirit bound by a tragic history. With a sense of trepidation, Emily and Mark recited the incantations, unlocking a power they couldn't comprehend. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and the forest came alive with a chorus of unearthly cries. It was as if the ancient ruins had responded to their call, and a powerful force had been unleashed. As the blood-red moon reached its zenith, a spectral figure emerged from the ruins, a monstrous apparition that seemed to be formed of darkness and mist. It was the vengeful spirit of a werewolf, bound by a curse and seeking revenge for a history of suffering. The spirit, filled with an insatiable hunger for retribution, began to wreak havoc in the forest. It cast a shadow over the ruins, its eyes burning with an unnatural fire. Emily and Mark, now faced with the undeniable existence of the supernatural, were caught in a harrowing battle to contain the spirit they had unleashed. The spirit of the werewolf, driven by a thirst for revenge, seemed invulnerable, impervious to their attempts to quell its power. Emily and Mark, now united in their determination to contain the supernatural force, realized that they had to decipher the incantations further to find a way to bind the spirit once more. Their research led them to a series of terrifying challenges, each one more formidable than the last. The forest itself seemed to be a living entity, with trees that moved to block their path and shadows that twisted and contorted into menacing forms. It was as if the supernatural force had infused the very essence of the woods. As they continued their quest, they uncovered the tragic history of the vengeful spirit. It had once been a human, bound by a curse that transformed it into a werewolf during the full moon. The villagers, fearing the beast within, had banished it to the ruins, where it had suffered in solitude for centuries. Their empathy for the spirit grew, even as they knew they had to contain it to prevent further havoc. The challenges they faced were daunting, from deciphering ancient symbols to solving riddles that seemed to be a test of their very sanity. With each challenge they overcame, the spirit's power waned, its monstrous form flickering like a dying ember. But it would not give up without a final, desperate struggle. As the lunar eclipse drew to a close, they faced the spirit in a final showdown. With an incantation of binding, they managed to contain the spirit, sealing it within the ruins once more. The forest fell silent, and the ruins seemed to exhale a sigh of relief. The vengeful spirit was trapped, its thirst for revenge quenched. As the blood-red moon disappeared from the sky, the forest returned to its quiet solitude. Emily and Mark, now bound by a shared experience of the supernatural, left the ancient ruins behind. They had uncovered a tale of vengeance and suffering, a story that had drawn them into a world of the supernatural. The forest, with its ancient ruins and hidden history, had taught them a lesson in the power of the past and the consequences of tampering with forces beyond their understanding. The supernatural, once dismissed by Mark's skepticism, had revealed its terrifying reality, and they had come face to face with a vengeful spirit bound by a history of suffering. The Curse of the Heirloom. The grand mansion stood atop a hill, its centuries-old walls bearing witness to generations of secrets and dark family legacy. Victoria, the mansion's current owner, was drawn to its eerie beauty and the history that whispered through its halls. Little did she know that the mansion held a chilling secret, one that had cursed her family for centuries. The mansion had always been known for its brooding architecture, with towering spires and ornate stained glass windows that cast eerie shadows. It overlooked a dense forest that seemed to stretch on forever, a place of mystery and danger. Victoria had inherited the mansion from her ancestors, and with it, the looming presence of the curse. For generations, her family had been plagued by a werewolf curse, a malevolent force that transformed family members into savage creatures under the full moon. The curse had brought pain and terror, shrouding the family's history in darkness. Victoria, determined to uncover the truth about her bloodline and the curse that had haunted her family, delved into the mansion's history. She scoured old journals and dusty tomes, searching for clues that might lead her to a way to break the curse. Her family, skeptical and fearful of the curse, begged her to abandon her quest. But Victoria's determination was unshakable. As she unraveled the mansion's history, she discovered the key to the curse, a mysterious heirloom, a jewel-encrusted amulet said to hold the power of the werewolf curse. It had been passed down through the generations, a sinister relic that was both a source of power and a harbinger of doom. With this knowledge, Victoria embarked on a quest to find the amulet, to break the curse that had plagued her family for centuries. She knew that she was not alone in her search, for the curse seemed to have a malevolent intelligence of its own, determined to protect the amulet and maintain its grip on her family. The forest that surrounded the mansion held a dark and ominous presence, as if it was guarding the secrets of the amulet. Victoria ventured into the woods, her every step watched by unseen eyes, her every move guided by an eerie force. The trees whispered secrets, and the wind carried voices of warning. As she journeyed deeper into the forest, she encountered supernatural challenges and obstacles, each one a test of her resolve and determination. She was faced with illusions and riddles that tested her wit and courage. It was as if the curse itself sought to prevent her from breaking its hold on her family. The climax of her quest led her to a hidden glade, bathed in the pale light of the moon. In the center of the glade, she found the amulet, suspended from a twisted tree branch, its jewels gleaming with an eerie beauty. It was a powerful and malevolent object, and it pulsed with an otherworldly energy. As she reached for the amulet, the forest seemed to come alive with an unearthly chorus of howls and cries. The trees moved, their branches twisting and contorting into monstrous forms. The ground trembled beneath her feet, and the moon cast an eerie glow over the glade. With a final, desperate effort, Victoria managed to seize the amulet, tearing it from its perch. As she did, a spectral figure, a werewolf's apparition, materialized before her. It was a vengeful spirit, the embodiment of the curse that had tormented her family. With the amulet in her grasp, Victoria faced the spirit in a climactic confrontation. The spirit's eyes burned with malevolence, its fangs gleaming in the moon's light. The battle that ensued was a test of wills, a showdown between the living and the supernatural. The spirit's power was formidable, and it seemed invulnerable to Victoria's attempts to contain it. It cast eerie illusions and unleashed dark magic that tested her strength and resolve. But Victoria was determined to break the curse that had haunted her family for generations. As the battle raged on, she realized that the key to defeating the spirit was to relinquish the amulet, to sever the connection between the curse and her bloodline. With a final, desperate act, she hurled the amulet into the forest, breaking the curse's hold on her family. The spirit let out a bone-chilling howl before disappearing into the night, its power shattered. The forest fell silent, and the moon's light bathed the glade in an otherworldly beauty. Victoria had broken the curse, and her family's history was forever changed. The mansion, once a place of dark secrets and family curses, now stood as a symbol of freedom and redemption. Victoria's determination had broken the curse that had plagued her family for generations, and the mansion's brooding architecture seemed to have lifted, revealing a newfound beauty and light. As the sun rose on the horizon, the forest and the mansion seemed to exhale a sigh of relief, their secrets finally revealed and their ominous presence. The Howling in the Woods. The cozy cabin nestled deep within the forest seemed like the perfect getaway for a group of friends seeking a weekend retreat. It was a place of serenity, far removed from the chaos of city life. Little did they know that their escape to nature would become a nightmarish ordeal, where the thunderstorm raging outside would be the least of their worries. The forest loomed around the cabin, its ancient trees shrouded in darkness. The friends had arrived with high spirits, looking forward to a weekend of laughter and relaxation. The rain that had begun as a drizzle had intensified into a thunderstorm, making the cabin their refuge. As they settled in, the crackling fire in the cabin's stone hearth provided a sense of comfort. The friends gathered around, their laughter and conversation filling the room. It was a cozy atmosphere, a world apart from the tempest raging outside. But as the thunder rumbled and the rain battered the cabin's windows, they began to hear something chilling, a distant howling, like the mournful cry of a wounded animal. The sound seemed to echo through the forest, growing louder and more sinister with each passing moment. The friends exchanged nervous glances, their faces pale with unease. The howls were eerie and unnatural, like nothing they had ever heard before. They strained to look out the windows, but the storm had obscured their view. As the night deepened, the howling continued, a relentless chorus of terror that seemed to close in on the cabin. The atmosphere inside the cabin, once filled with warmth and laughter, had turned tense and fearful. The friends huddled together, seeking solace in each other's presence. They realized that they were not alone in the forest. The howls were not those of a typical animal, but something more sinister, something that seemed to be hunting them. Panic set in as they considered the possibility of a predator lurking in the woods. Their desperate attempts to contact the outside world were met with frustration. The storm had knocked out the power, leaving them isolated and cut off from help. The only source of light was the flickering fire, casting eerie shadows that seemed to dance to the rhythm of the howling. With each passing moment, the howling grew closer until it was as if the creature was right outside the cabin, its presence a looming shadow in the night. Fear consumed the friends as they realized that they were in the midst of a nightmarish ordeal. With trembling hands, they searched for any means of defense, finding only a few kitchen knives and firewood. It was a feeble defense against an unknown and supernatural threat, but it was all they had. The cabin's wooden walls creaked and groaned as the unseen presence circled them. The friends, their faces etched with terror, kept a vigilant watch on the windows, their ears straining to detect any movement outside. As the hours passed, they heard scratching and tapping on the cabin's walls, a sinister rhythm that seemed to mock their fear. The howling had turned into a frenzied cacophony, a chorus of malevolence that seemed to taunt them. With the storm showing no signs of abating, the friends knew that they were trapped in the cabin with an unknown and relentless force. They tried to formulate a plan, but their fear had left them paralyzed and indecisive. Their nightmare escalated when they heard the sound of the cabin's front door being tested. Something, or someone, was trying to gain entry. Panic overcame them as they realized that their feeble defenses were all that stood between them and the unknown horror outside. With trembling hands, they reinforced the door, pushing furniture against it in a desperate attempt to keep the intruder at bay. The cabin's walls continued to groan, as if under siege from a malevolent force. As the night wore on, they huddled together, their eyes fixed on the cabin's windows and doors. The howling outside had turned into a chilling symphony of terror, a relentless cacophony that seemed to seep into their very souls. With the first light of dawn, the howling ceased, and the storm outside began to subside. The friends, exhausted and terrified, cautiously ventured outside to survey the damage. What they found sent shivers down their spines. The forest around the cabin seemed untouched by the storm, as if it had been protected by a malevolent force. The trees bore the marks of claw-like scratches, and the ground was marred by footprints that seemed to be neither human nor animal. The friends left the cabin, their retreat from nature forever marred by the memory of that night. They knew that they had encountered something otherworldly and malevolent, something that defied explanation. The howling in the woods had left an indelible mark on their souls, a nightmarish encounter with the unknown. As they made their way back to civilization, they couldn't help but wonder what had lurked in the forest, and whether they had narrowly escaped a fate too terrifying to imagine. The werewolf's redemption. The secluded monastery lay hidden within the depths of the forest, a sanctuary of solitude and prayer. For Brother Michael, a man racked with guilt over a dark affliction, it was a place of refuge, a haven where he sought redemption for sins he could barely forgive himself for. Brother Michael had been tormented by a curse that had haunted him for years, a curse that transformed him into a ravenous beast under the light of the full moon. The guilt of his actions during those cursed nights weighed heavily on his soul, and he had sought solace within the walls of the monastery. As he approached the ancient stone edifice, the towering spires and ornate stained glass windows spoke of a history steeped in faith and devotion. The monastery was a place of quiet reflection, and Brother Michael hoped to find the strength to confront his inner demons and seek redemption for the atrocities he had committed. The enigmatic abbot, a figure cloaked in mystery and wisdom, welcomed Brother Michael with open arms. The abbot's voice was soothing, his words filled with reassurance. He promised that the monastery would be a place of salvation and peace, where Brother Michael could find the redemption he so desperately sought. As Brother Michael settled into the life of prayer and solitude within the monastery, he began to experience a sense of calm and spiritual awakening. The days were filled with devotion, and the nights were spent in silent contemplation. The brothers of the monastery welcomed him as one of their own, and the weight of his affliction began to lift. But as the days turned to weeks, Brother Michael began to notice strange occurrences within the monastery. Whispers of secrets and hidden truths began to swirl around him, as if the very walls of the monastery were speaking. The other monks seemed to be hiding something, their eyes filled with fear and a deep sense of foreboding. Brother Michael's curiosity was piqued, and he began to investigate the mysteries of the monastery. It was during one fateful night, as he wandered the dimly lit corridors, that he discovered the first clue, a hidden chamber beneath the monastery, its entrance concealed behind a heavy tapestry. As he entered the chamber, he was met with a sight that sent shivers down his spine. The room was adorned with ancient symbols and incantations, a place of dark rituals and malevolent forces. The air was heavy with an otherworldly presence, and Brother Michael felt an overwhelming sense of dread. In the center of the chamber, he found a chilling artifact, an amulet, encrusted with jewels and emanating a sinister aura. It was a relic of great power, a source of the curse that had afflicted him for so long. Brother Michael realized that the curse was not a mere affliction of the flesh, but a malevolent force that had been bound to his bloodline for generations. As the realization dawned on him, he confronted the abbot, his voice trembling with anger and betrayal. The abbot's enigmatic facade began to crumble, and he confessed to the dark secret that had been hidden within the monastery's walls. The abbot revealed that he had been a practitioner of dark magic, a man who had sought power beyond the boundaries of faith. He had bound the curse to Brother Michael's bloodline, using the monastery as a conduit for the malevolent force. It was a curse that he had hoped to control, but it had spiraled out of his grasp, leaving a trail of suffering and death. As Brother Michael stood face to face with the abbot, a supernatural battle of wills ensued. The abbot, filled with the power of the curse, sought to maintain his hold on Brother Michael and use him as a vessel for the malevolent force. But Brother Michael, driven by a newfound sense of purpose and faith, resisted the abbot's control. The battle within the monastery was a testament to the strength of Brother Michael's resolve. The ancient symbols and incantations that adorned the chamber came to life, their power pitted against Brother Michael's unwavering faith. The monastery itself seemed to tremble, as if caught in the throes of a supernatural conflict. In the end, Brother Michael's faith proved stronger than the abbot's dark magic. With a final, desperate act, he seized the cursed amulet and hurled it into the roaring fireplace, breaking the curse's hold on his bloodline. The amulet disintegrated in a burst of ethereal fire, and the malevolent force was banished from the monastery. The abbot, once a figure of power and mystery, was left broken and defeated. The monastery, once a place of hidden secrets and dark rituals, was now bathed in the light of redemption and salvation. Brother Michael had found his redemption, not only for his own sins but for the generations of suffering that had been inflicted by the curse. The monastery, now free from the darkness that had bound it, stood as a symbol of faith and forgiveness. As Brother Michael looked out at the forest beyond the monastery, he knew that his journey was far from over, but he had found the strength to confront his affliction and seek redemption, and the enigmatic abbot's dark secrets had been vanquished. The curse that had haunted his bloodline for generations had been broken, and the monastery's hidden history had been rewritten with a new chapter of faith and hope. Blood Oath at midnight. In the heart of the forest, nestled within the dense undergrowth, lay an ancient cemetery shrouded in mystery and overgrowth. This was a place where time seemed to stand still, where the gravestones bore the weight of centuries, and where whispers of the supernatural echoed through the shadows. It was here that a group of paranormal investigators, led by the fearless Sarah, had gathered to conduct a ritual, unknowingly setting in motion a night of terror and survival. The cemetery, with its crumbling tombstones and gnarled trees, seemed like the perfect backdrop for their investigation. The investigators believed that by performing a midnight ritual at this eerie location, they could make contact with the otherworldly and uncover the secrets of the restless spirits that dwelled there. As the clock struck midnight, the investigators, their equipment in hand, gathered around a weathered gravestone that bore the name of an unknown soul. Sarah, the leader of the group, led the ritual, her voice filled with a sense of authority and determination. They chanted incantations and called out to the spirits, hoping to make contact with the other side. The air grew heavy with anticipation, and a sense of unease settled over the group. The ancient tombstones seemed to watch them with a silent, foreboding presence. As the incantations continued, the forest around them fell into an eerie silence, as if nature itself was holding its breath. Unbeknownst to the investigators, their ritual had stirred the attention of a vengeful spirit, one that had been bound to the cemetery for centuries. This was the spirit of a cursed werewolf, a creature of both the mortal realm and the supernatural, driven by a burning desire for revenge. The moment of reckoning arrived when, in the midst of the incantations, a bone-chilling howl pierced the stillness of the night. The investigators froze, their faces pale with dread, as they realized that they had unwittingly summoned a malevolent presence. The howl echoed through the cemetery, a haunting sound that seemed to draw closer with each passing moment. The ritual had inadvertently bound the investigators to the vengeful spirit, and now they were marked by a curse they could not escape. Panic overtook the group as they scrambled to end the ritual, but it was too late. The ancient curse had taken hold, and they were now at the mercy of the supernatural. As the spirit drew near, the investigators were gripped by a sense of terror and powerlessness. Their equipment malfunctioned, Their flashlights flickered, and the atmosphere grew colder, as if the very essence of the night had turned against them. The spirit materialized before them, a monstrous figure with eyes that burned with a malevolent fire. Its fur was matted with blood, and its fangs gleamed in the moonlight. It was a creature of pure rage, driven by a need for vengeance. With a sudden, ferocious lunge, the spirit attacked, and the investigators were plunged into a night of relentless terror. They fled through the cemetery, their breathless cries filling the night. The malevolent spirit pursued them with an otherworldly speed, its howls echoing through the forest. The investigators, driven by fear and desperation, sought refuge among the ancient tombstones, hoping that the consecrated ground would protect them from the vengeful spirit. But the spirit seemed to move effortlessly through the cemetery, its supernatural powers defying the laws of the mortal realm. The night was a relentless battle for survival. As the investigators tried to evade the spirit's relentless pursuit, they sought shelter in the crumbling mausoleums, their hearts pounding with dread, but the spirit's presence was unyielding. As the hours passed, the group was gradually whittled down by the spirit's relentless attacks. Each encounter with the vengeful werewolf was a test of their will and courage, as they fought to stay one step ahead of the malevolent force. In the midst of the chaos, Sarah, the leader of the group, made a fateful decision. She realized that the only way to break the curse and free her companions was to confront the spirit head-on. With unwavering determination, she faced the spirit in a final, intense showdown. The battle that ensued was a clash of the mortal and the supernatural, a test of Sarah's strength and faith. The spirit's power was formidable, its presence a terrifying force of nature. But Sarah's resolve was unshakable, and she fought with all her might to break the curse that had bound them. With a final, desperate act, Sarah hurled an ancient relic at the spirit, a symbol of faith and protection. The relic struck the spirit's heart, and with a bone-chilling howl, the vengeful werewolf spirit disintegrated, its power shattered. The curse that had bound the investigators was broken, and they were free from the vengeful spirit's relentless pursuit. As the first light of dawn broke over the ancient cemetery, they gathered together, their hearts heavy with the memory of the night's terror. The forest and the cemetery, once places of darkness and fear, were now bathed in the soft, forgiving light of a new day. The investigators had survived a night of relentless horror, and the malevolent spirit had been banished. As they made their way back to civilization, they knew that they had encountered something beyond the realm of the living, something that defied explanation and understanding. The ancient cemetery, once a place of supernatural secrets, had been forever changed, and the investigators had learned the true meaning of the paranormal and the power of ancient curses.